Guys, welcome back to the Chief Life Podcast. I am Matthias Turner, and today I have brought the brains back, Stacey Lee Turner, to hang out with us and talk about insulin sensitivity. Stacey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
If you're watching the video version, you can see a sleeping little daughter hanging on Stacey's chest as well. So there might be a pause in this if we need to at any point if she wakes up. But pretty much, I understand what insulin sensitivity is. I understand how it works, but I'm not very good at verbalizing it. So Stacey's going to come in and help me out and make it sound a lot smarter than what I would. But pretty much we're gonna show, I guess, give you guys a bit of a deeper understanding into it and talk about what insulin sensitivity is and how that's good. Talk about what insulin resistance is and how that's bad, and talk about how we can change our bodies from being one to the other. Ideally, change it from being resistant to being sensitive. So I think to start off with, it's probably a good place to say, well, what the heck is insulin, and why is it? Why do we matter why does it matter if we're sensitive, or if we're she's just woken up, if we're being sensitive or if we're resistant?
Absolutely. So insulin is actually a hormone. I mean, we hear the word get thrown around a lot these days because type 2 diabetes seems to be extremely prevalent, as does insulin resistant, and we'll get onto those in a moment. But insulin is a storage hormone. So we require glucose in order for our bodies to have energy to do the things that we need to do. Our muscles, our liver, and our fat cells actually use glucose, as does having some in our blood, so that we can actually exercise and move around and do what we need to do and function. If we end up with a lot of glucose in our blood, then insulin's job as a storage hormone is to carry that glucose out of the blood and put it where it needs to go within the body. And so I guess knowing what insulin is to start with and what its job is, then it will make a lot more sense when we're talking about whether you're sensitive to it or resistant to it.
Yeah, so I think it's important to say, based on some studies that have recently been done, this is based out of America, but 1 in 2 people are either pre-diabetic or diabetic in America, which is crazy. So you think about Americans, there is 300 million of them. So it means 150 million people within America alone are pre-diabetic, if not diabetic. And I wouldn't go so far to say that Australia would be that far behind them, really.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on our stats, but there's definitely going to be a lot of diabetic and pre-diabetic people here too, because we actually overtook America in terms of obesity.
Yeah, exactly, and that is a high
per capita. So
that is a high correlation to if you're insulin resistant. So sorry, if you're insulin sensitive. No, it is resistant. Sorry, I had it right.
Yeah.
So what I do want to talk about is, what is insulin sensitivity?
Yeah, so we want to increase our sensitivity, or we want to at least figure out whether we are sensitive or not, because the more sensitive we are to insulin, the less insulin we need to do its job. So we mentioned before, insulin is a storage hormone, and its job is to take the glucose where it needs to go. If we're insulin sensitive, which as Matty mentioned is a good thing, then we don't need very much insulin in order for us to put that glucose where it needs to go. If that makes sense. So we're getting some giggles from the bub. So being insulin sensitive means that we don't actually need to use as much insulin to have our body functioning at its optimal. Now, if you are someone who is insulin resistant, this is what happens when our sensitivity is reduced, and what ends up happening is we need a lot more insulin in order for the glucose to be removed from the blood. At any one time, you know, our sugar levels or our glucose levels will spike after we eat food, but we don't really want that sugar hanging around in the blood. And so that's why it's important for insulin to clear it out of the blood and put it into muscles, liver, and store the rest as fat in our adipose tissue. So if we are at a normal range, if we've got good sensitivity to insulin, then it means that our pancreas, which is where the insulin hormone is produced, isn't on absolute overdrive. And actually, whilst we're talking about the pancreas, there are 3 different types of insulin sensitivity. So we've got peripheral insulin sensitivity, hepatic insulin sensitivity, and pancreatic insulin sensitivity. And so we'll start with pancreatic. This is where the functioning of the cells that secrete insulin, the beta cells, if these are working properly, then we have good pancreatic insulin sensitivity. But if these become damaged and can no longer function, then we can develop insulin resistance, and that's what leads to type 1 diabetes, is where the pancreas just stops working. Then you've got your hepatic. So hepatic is to do with the liver insulin sensitivity, and this is related to gluconeogenesis, which is just the fancy long version of saying the production of new blood sugar. And it's usually inflammatory factors that can prevent insulin from acting in the liver via inducing insulin resistance. So this will lead to insulin's actions being unable to tell the liver to stop producing glucose, and so then there is too much glucose being produced in somebody who is insulin resistant through liver function.
Correcto.
Yes. And then we've got the peripheral. So this is the one that I guess most people have heard of with type 2 diabetes, in that if your peripheral insulin sensitivity is how readily your body cells in your peripheral tissue, such as your muscle and fat, can absorb glucose. So if you do develop insulin resistance, then it means that your muscles and your fat are no longer sensitive to the insulin that you're using, and they can't absorb the glucose as effectively. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the different ways that we are sensitive to insulin, which can then lead to resistance in these areas as well.
Cool, I'm going to step back in here. Little Mrs. wanting cuddles, although Daddy's bulk hot right now. So then we lead into, we've obviously talked about sensitivity, so what happens when it's reduced and we come to the bad side of insulin resistance?
Yeah, so this is, as we mentioned, what can lead to type 2 diabetes. Now, the crazy thing is that for people to be insulin resistant or pre-diabetic or even have type 2 diabetes, they actually have decreased sensitivity to insulin for up to a decade before this gets diagnosed. So when you think about it, that is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds quite far-fetched, but it's definitely something to be aware of, because having that decreased sensitivity and choosing to eat foods and having certain lifestyle decisions that can affect the sensitivity then leads to these negative outcomes of insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, and like increased morbidity, right? Like you've got increased risk of dying younger, having a whole bunch of other health conditions and issues coming up, because there's all these things that we're choosing to do food-wise, lifestyle-wise, that actually could have increased our sensitivity rather than increasing our resistance.
That's actually one of the biggest things I took away from my CrossFit level 1 was around the hyperinsulinemia, which is high amounts of insulin within the body, and the amount of disease that it causes. So for so long people said, oh, these other things are the cause of it, but then they pretty much put it down to, no, it comes down to high amounts of insulin within the body for long periods of time, creating lots of inflammation, which then leads to things like type 2 diabetes, heart attacks, heart disease, yeah, like there was plenty of different things that come from that, and I was like, wow, that's a big insight to kind of have.
Yeah, definitely. And that's controlled by what we choose to put in our mouths and how we choose to move our bodies. So
totally,
it's pretty full on when you think about it like that. And so I guess in terms of the other things that can happen when your sensitivity is reduced, it's, it puts into perspective, well, there are a lot of things that we can do to control this, to prevent this, and what we want is to increase sensitivity so that we can avoid resistance, essentially. So how can we increase sensitivity? Because we don't want to go on about the negative stuff for too much longer. There are a number of natural ways that you can boost sensitivity, and in a lot of it, like this is kind of an area that Matty and I do like to research because it can impact a lot of other things, but obviously we want to aim for the stuff that is natural as opposed to taking medications where possible. And so a lot of the research that we've done actually does cross over. There's a lot of agreement in terms of things that can help to improve and boost your insulin sensitivity.
And a lot of it comes down to the lifestyle factors, right? So to start off, we'll pretty much go through, we've got about 35 different ones that we're going to touch on, and we'll kind of, I guess, maybe unfold each one a little bit more without going into too much detail. So the number one is actually exercise. So this comes down to getting a variety of different exercises in, so doing some form of monostructural, so running or rowing or riding your bicycle, skipping, yeah, or as well as doing some body weight stuff. I'm going to pass it back to you. Doing some form of body weight stuff, and as well as doing weights, so doing a mix of these three different types, so some form of gymnastics, some form of monostructural, and some form of weightlifting can be really, really beneficial. So I mean, beneficial for lots of different things, but in regards to actually making you insulin sensitive, then this is a really positive thing if we can get out and get some form of regular exercise happening.
Definitely. Number 2 would be to sleep more or improve the quality of your sleep. So when you're sleep deprived or when the quality of your sleep isn't great, it affects your hormones and it can throw out your insulin balance, it can increase your cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And so when this stuff isn't working properly, then it not only affects our ability to be insulin sensitive, but it also impacts our ability to lose weight.
So I think the thing to kind of gauge that is just whether you're waking up feeling rested. If you're not feeling rested when you wake up, there's a chance that we need to be sleeping more, but we need to change some things around with your actual sleep. So if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, head across and check out some of the videos that I've done on sleep, because there's some really easy insights that you can do within 15 minutes of 3 different videos that I've done on sleep. So some hacks around that and some things that you can really do to make your sleep better. Number 3 comes down to eating more fiber, and what we're talking about here is good quality vegetables that contain fiber, rather than eating foods like cereals and breads and pastas. These are not going to be favorable, because once again the issue is that we've got too much sugar in the body, so we need to reduce the amount of sugar we're having, and we do that by getting, I guess, less starchy or less sugary foods from good quality fibrous vegetables.
Yeah, absolutely. The next one is to use more spices, and this is as easy as just throwing them into your cooking. So if you are eating, good quality lean meats, wild caught fish, and lots of colourful fruits and veggies, then chucking some herbs and spices into your food can really help to increase sensitivity.
Also just makes it taste a wee better.
Oh yeah.
Number 5 is cutting carbs and sugar, and we're not talking about cutting it completely, but just removing or reducing the amount that you are having, swapping it out for other alternatives, so more proteins, more fats, and that's definitely something that we do on our meal plan. So if you need help with that, then reach out. We can definitely help you to be more insulin sensitive.
Absolutely, and adding on to that, having more good fats alongside the carbohydrates that you are having helps to balance that sugar spike, which helps to increase your sensitivity as well. So number 6 is drinking apple cider vinegar, and this is as easy as having, you can water it down or you can have it as a straight shot first thing in the morning. It helps to boost your digestive juices and get everything flowing, which then everything kind of has a domino cascading effect in the body. One thing causes another thing to happen, causes another thing to happen. So if your body is ready to receive food, and then when you eat, once you've had that apple cider vinegar, your body is more ready to move that glucose where it needs to go, because it's helping you to be more insulin sensitive.
I went through a bout of SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, at one stage, and I had to have a little shot of apple cider vinegar before every single meal, so 15 minutes beforehand. All that does, it just starts up your digestive juices, as Stacey said. But I was doing that before every time I ate, which is great. So I would strongly recommend putting some water in to liquefy it. Make it a little tastier and a little less harsh when it goes down.
And before food, as Matty said, is good if you're working on activating that stomach acid beforehand. But you can also just have it on your food. So it can be nice as a dressing on your salad or your veggies or whatever. That's kind of cool.
Number 7 comes down to losing weight, which is kind of interesting because you need to change a lot of these things if you want to be able to lose the weight in the first place. But a lot of the time, like we said, when you've got hyperinsulinemia, lots of amounts of insulin within the body for long periods of time, you're going to be gaining weight consistently. So we need to change some things around to make sure that you're losing weight. And when we're talking about losing weight, we're typically talking about body fat.
Yeah. And then you want to reduce stress. So I feel like a lot of these do overlap, but it's good for you to hear each one individually so you can see which one relates to you and which area maybe you need to start focusing on first. But it is a very interweaved web. So yeah, look to reduce stress in any way you can. You can technically reduce stress through food as well, because that's going to affect your hormones. But if you have everyday stress around you, quite toxic relationships, a toxic work environment, things that are causing you to feel stressed, then it's important to look at these things and start with, we talk about this a lot, but use your breath to up or down regulate your stress. And obviously we want to down regulate your stress. So something as simple as box breathing, inhale for 4, hold for 4, breathe out for 4, hold for 4, can literally soothe you and the environment around you as well. I taught a Mums and Bubs baby yoga class today, and the babies were all making lots of noise and very, bubbly and entertained. And then we all started doing our box breathing and the room went silent. 8 babies all went quiet because they could feel our energy and our stress just leave the room.
I mean, the other thing with this is what we do a lot with our wellness in the workplace stuff. So we'll go out and we introduce them to things like this. So I've also done another 3-part series on stress mitigation. So if you guys aren't, once again, subscribed to the YouTube channel, head across, just search The Chief Life on YouTube and you'll find our channel.
And this is all free content, so
exactly.
Definitely jump on and get your hands on that.
Number 9 is to add some more colourful fruit and vegetables into your diet, and this kind of goes back to adding more fibrous food into your diet as well. But realistically, what we're talking about here is trying to make your gut as healthy as possible, and we do that through variety. So making sure you're getting fruits and vegetables of all different sorts, colours and sizes.
And to add on to that, Matty, with the fibre thing, another reason that's useful is because it slows gastric emptying, which means then that your sugar levels don't spike really quickly. It's more of a slow release of the energy of the food that you've eaten, and so that improves your insulin sensitivity through that way and stops the resistance being an issue.
Right.
Next, I'm going to kind of bundle the next 2 together because they're both quite short ones, but one is a pinch of cinnamon in your food.
It's 10.
And then the other is to drink more green tea.
Love it.
So these both have a lot of science done around them and studies to prove their benefits in helping to not only help people to lean up, but also to improve insulin sensitivity. And those 2 things actually go hand in hand, because if you're more insulin sensitive, then you're going to be able to lose fat more effectively.
Cinnamon also stops your sugar cravings, so it's great as a little additive to any food you're having. Just put it on top and you'll be hopefully wanting less sugars. Next one is to avoid trans fats. So this is your unhealthy style of fats, and this comes down to, once again, it's just a food that's going to create more inflammation within the body. The whole goal of reducing insulin or making you insulin sensitive is to make you less inflammatory overall, realistically. So if we can remove foods that create inflammation in the body, you're going to be doing a lot better for that. So that's things like your vegetable oils, margarine,
anything that's deep fried.
Yeah, so like packet chips, or also buying like fish and chips from the shops.
Yeah, and I mean, trans fats are actually from processed food anyway, because you can have fats that the trans is the way that the molecular structure of the fat is. So it's either cis or a trans, and cis is okay, CIS, whereas trans is the bad variation because it's the man-made processed variation. So if you're reducing processed food, then you're technically reducing your trans fats.
Yeah.
Definitely. Try supplementing. So supplement being the operative word in this sentence. If you want to get the most out of your supplements, have them additional to a nutritive diet. So as we've spoken about before, get the good whole foods in, but you can try supplementing with a probiotic, so that's going to help your gut again, which also will help your insulin sensitivity, and then reduce inflammation, so get your omega-3 fatty acids in, fish oils, that sort of stuff.
Number 14 is trying intermittent fasting, or implementing intermittent fasting. So they've seen that using intermittent fasting worked actually a lot better. So I think
than
a
calorie
lot better than calorie restriction. So calorie restriction got a result of about 17% change, whereas intermittent fasting got a 52% change. So that's a pretty massive difference. And if you wanted to do intermittent fasting on a challenge or a protocol, then hit us up, because our next one's probably going to be about end of March, maybe thereabouts. I think it's end of March when I've got it penciled in for, but we've got one going right now, and the team are doing incredibly well. We're a week down, and they're all posting their results like this week and saying how excited they were with what they've changed just within 1 week of following a protocol.
Yeah, and I mean, you hear things like, oh, intermittent fasting, and then maybe your head goes, oh, what a fad, but it's been around a while now. It's one of those things that there's been plenty of research done on it, and
a lot of good research.
Absolutely, and there's so many different ways of bringing it into your life, and it's just essentially shortening your eating window. So there's heaps of stuff that Matty's actually done on that, videos, podcasts, if you want to learn more about that. Number 15 is drinking less alcohol, and I mean, this one in itself is just better for your health regardless of insulin sensitivity, but looking to reduce especially things like beers and ones that contain a lot of like carbohydrates are going to be important for helping with insulin sensitivity, but reducing your alcohol regardless is just going to be better for your health and better for your fat loss as well. But
yeah, better for your stress levels. And it reduces stress by not having alcohol, which seems counterintuitive to some people because they have alcohol to reduce stress, which doesn't work. So
no, it does. It stresses the body as much as people don't want to admit it.
Lift weights or your body weights, which we kind of touched on in doing more exercise, but lifting weights are also going to increase your lean muscle mass. The more lean muscle mass we have, the faster your metabolism is, probably the better your insulin sensitivity is going to be. So realistically, getting some form of consistent weightlifting or body weightlifting in is going to be really beneficial.
Definitely. And so, yeah.
I was going to say steps into the next one, which is number 17, is gain some muscle. So once again, the more lean muscle we have, well, muscle is the organ of longevity. So let's leave it at that. Get more muscle. It's great for your health and longevity.
Absolutely. And because muscle uses glucose, then that helps with your insulin sensitivity because glucose is being put into the muscle and it's not floating around in your bloodstream.
Number 18
is sprinting.
Kind of within the same thing. So doing forms of sprints. And this is why later down track CrossFit gets recommended, because it gives you interval training where you're sprinting, you're going hard out. But doing some form of regular sprinting could be really beneficial. So doing 100-meter sprints, 10 by 100-meter sprints once every few weeks is going to be great for you. But I mean, I think they've done a study based on as little as 20 seconds, or no, 7 seconds of sprinting can increase your testosterone, which in turn starts to create a lot of good benefits within the body.
Absolutely. And then training full body circuits. So these are all kind of training related ones, just moving more. The next one, 20, is walking. So yeah, really good to get the body moving, doing some kind of activity that's going to be beneficial for increasing insulin sensitivity.
Number 21 is drink less coffee, and this comes down to probably more so your stress levels once again. However, if you listen to my talk with Dr. Daniel Pompa recently, he talked about some people, when they have coffee, actually get a glucose release, so a sugar release in the body. So it is worthwhile, depending on how far down the rabbit hole you're going, but actually doing a glucose test before you do a coffee, and then about half an hour after you've had your coffee, do it again and find out what your blood sugar levels are actually doing. Because if you're boosting your blood sugar levels from having caffeine, then once again that is not favorable. So if you're having even just one daily coffee, but you're trying to reduce or become more insulin sensitive, I should say, then having a coffee is not going to be beneficial for you.
So is that add black coffee, or was that with milk and sugar?
Well, he kind of talked about it as if it was black coffee, and then transitioned to say, well, you might want to change some different things, like taking some fat out and putting some fat in. So I'm not actually sure if it was related to black coffee or not. I think he's in the middle of doing it. They've got a test of about 20 people going through it. So I mean, I've kind of been watching along to see what's happening, and so far they haven't given us end results yet. So I'm interested to try it. I said I was going to try it and I haven't yet, so it's definitely something I should do, is pop out a glucose monitor and go for it.
Yeah, because you've got a test at home option.
Right.
And the next one is adding vinegar to your food. So I guess this is similar to the apple cider vinegar, but this can also be balsamic vinegar to when you're actually eating.
So different flavoured vinegars are going to help once again with your digestive enzymes. Eat a whole food, plant-based diet. So what we're talking about is real foods, real plants, real quality. So real meat, real animal products are also going to be within this list. But making sure that you're getting a colourful and mixed amount of foods.
Yeah.
When it comes down to food quality, obviously this is really important. So making sure that you're getting, so this is almost an added benefit, but making sure you're getting free range, making sure you're getting pasture raised, making sure that you're getting wild caught, making sure that it is organic where possible when it comes to your fruits and vegetables. Still washing your vegetables even if they are organic. So going through and washing your vegetables, ideally with an alkalized water content would be even better. So the process from when you get it, there's also extra things you can do to make sure that it's even better. But buying quality foods, even if it is a little bit more expensive, is going to give you a host of benefits for when it comes to dropping body fat, increasing your insulin sensitivity, but also your health and longevity.
And it might cost money now, but it actually is cheaper in the long run.
Yeah, definitely.
Because then you're not having to pay hospital bills later. Next one is getting some sunshine, so get outside. And a lot of these do relate to our 7 pillars of health.
Which is why we created them back in the day.
Getting outside is definitely something that we recommend. And if you can get at least 10 to 20 minutes in the sunshine or outside, because the sun isn't always shining, then that's going to be beneficial. But not only just for general overall health, specific to increasing your insulin sensitivity.
Even less for some people. Like if you don't have any sunlight in your day right now, let's get you having like 2 minutes or 5 minutes in the sun directly would be great. I had a talk with the lady the other day and she said, I burn so easily so I don't want to do this. And I said, well, why don't you go outside for a minute? And she's like, I can do that. And so it's like, let's build up your resistance. And she was actually of another ethnicity that had darker coloured skin. So she actually needs to be out in the sun even more.
To get her vitamin D.
To get her proper amounts of vitamin D, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've become so sun scared. It's something we often talk about. And it's really important for us to get that sunshine. We are not designed to be kept inside all day. So do some kind of full body, high volume, high intensity training to increase your insulin resistance.
Something like CrossFit.
Like CrossFit.
Train at altitude. So, I mean, depending on who you are, this might not be that easy to do, but getting to the slopes, that would be really awesome if you can. But there is altitude chambers, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Here in Brisbane, I know we've got a fair few based around the place. We actually had one of our oldest members, she went and did Everest last year or the year before, and she went to an altitude training room every week and just did some training in there, and she said that it made such a difference, and she was sleeping better because she was breathing better as well, which is super cool. So I mean, you don't have to be going to Everest to be doing it. You could just be doing it because you want to increase, once again, you know, insulin sensitivity, but also how you breathe and how you sleep. Yeah,
definitely. Train fasted. So when you do exercise, try and do it after not eating. So this doesn't have to be first thing in the morning if that doesn't work with your schedule. It might just mean having a 3-hour food hiatus before you train in order for you to be in a fasted state.
Number 28 is meditate. So this is probably more so related once again to reducing your stress. If we can get control of our brain, control of our mind, control of what's going on, then you're less likely to be super stressed and super chaotic in life. So meditation is the key to, I guess, control, realistically.
Yeah, which is ironic because it's all about releasing, control. Learning to go with the flow.
Yeah.
So 29, I love this. Go hug someone you love. And this leads to a release of happy hormones, happy chemicals, oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, all the good reward center hormones, which then in turn helps you to be more insulin sensitive because your body is happy. There's less stress hormones. You can't have happy hormones and stress hormones in your body at the same time. So if you're focused on bringing joy into your life and into your body, then you're going to have less chance of having stress hormones in your body.
Definitely. There's not too many people I don't know, I know that don't like cuddles. Like there's obviously those few that don't like it from everyone, but they still like it from their special people, which is cool.
Or just doing something that you enjoy, like that brings out happiness in you.
Yeah. The next one comes down to eating pungent fermented food from Asia or Asian cuisines, but realistically this comes down to fermented foods in general. So things like kombucha, sauerkraut, kimchi are all going to be really great for you. But another really important thing is making sure that you're getting a variety of these things. So if you like a kombucha, try not to have the same flavor every single day, because if you're having the same flavor consistently, you build up the gut bacteria of just that kombucha, and then you don't get any variety. So yes, you might have a healthier gut for doing so, but if we don't have variety in the flavors and the things that we're eating that are fermented, essentially you're just putting in another strain of healthy gut. You're not doing the proper job of getting a forest full of healthy gut bacteria.
So the next one comes back to the style of eating that you would want to follow to increase your sensitivity. A lot of the studies that we looked at were around following a ketogenic diet, but essentially that's just looking at reducing your carbohydrates, your processed carbohydrates, starches. That will increase your insulin sensitivity, and eating good quality, as we said before, good quality meats, fishes, lots of fruit and veg, and nuts and seeds. So yeah, just making sure you're getting a good balance of all your whole foods. You don't have to feel like you're subscribing to a particular diet, just focus on that whole foods thing.
So the next one comes down to cooking with ginger and garlic, and this really sparks something in my head, but I don't know what, based on what some of the benefits are around ginger and garlic. I don't know if you've got anything around that, but
yeah, it's definitely fat loss.
Yeah, so there's definitely something that I've looked at previously, and I'm pretty sure it was all related to fat loss. With the studies that they've shown around adding this. But ginger extract is really good for increasing your testosterone, so I'm sure just smaller amounts of ginger is going to be good for men in general.
Yeah, and garlic is a good anti-inflammatory as well, so just decreasing inflammation in the body, as is ginger and
Are they both
turmeric.
high in vitamin C? I'm not sure. But potentially there's something around that. So I mean, they're both obviously really good for mitigating colds as well. So there's a whole heap of benefits to eating ginger and garlic.
Yes, and just getting the hormones in a favourable balance, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Then you want to get some vitamin K2 into your body through food, through supplements. So micro sprouts are actually really good for doing this if you want to do it through food. You don't need to eat much of them, but broccoli sprouts, alfalfa sprouts, that sort of stuff, really, really good for getting in some K through your food. And then you can supplement if you need to. And a lot of supplements with K2 come with D in them as well. And seeing that we're quite a vitamin D deficient country,
Could be worthwhile.
I'd say it's worthwhile. And again, supplementing. So making sure you've got your diet sorted, and then, because you can't paint a dirty car, one of my favourite Greg Glassman quotes, he's the guy that created CrossFit. You want to clean up the diet and then add the supplements. But I mean, in saying that, even if you aren't eating perfectly, the supplements will assist. So definitely worthwhile still including the supplements, and then trying to clean up your diet on the side.
There's also something around, I can't quite remember it, but pretty much vegans, if you're sprouting your food before you eat it, which is something you should all be doing, activating it, you can get a lot more out of it, because obviously you need to be getting as much nutrients in as you can when you're choosing a diet like that. So the next one comes down to reducing refined sugar intake, which I think we've kind of talked about a lot. We've been a lot this time. So realistically, if you're you're eating a lot of packeted food, you're going to be getting a lot of refined sugars in. So let's try to reduce that as much as we can.
Definitely. And then the last one, which we have actually been implementing, mainly Matty, but I've been enjoying it too, is to eat liver and or oysters at least once a week. And the reason is that there are so many nutrients packed into these amazing foods. Some people might not like them, but Matty's actually been making the liver into pate.
That's been incredible.
And yeah, it's been delicious. So definitely worthwhile. You get all of your fat-soluble vitamins in there. You get a good dose of zinc. You get a heap of just so many vitamins and minerals from just one food.
I've been having it just on my eggs, and it's really nice. You have pretty much an egg with a little bit of pate on top, and it tastes delicious.
Yeah, and just super nutrient dense. I just can't get over how wonderful it is. So definitely worthwhile sourcing some chicken livers or whatever you can get your hands on at your local supermarket or butcher.
So I mean, Woolies have liver. They've got chicken liver, which is what I've been using. It's probably not the best. I've been trying to source it through my local butchers, and they're trying to get it in. But the issue is that the offal is actually the most nutrient dense product, and so a lot of our offal, because all of our meat is grass fed, or most of our meat is grass fed, the stuff that I source at least is grass fed, it all gets sent to China because they're requesting that they have the best quality of the nutrient density. So a lot of our stuff gets imported either to China or somewhere else, which is kind of crazy. But realistically, if you can get your hands on a lamb liver, or if you get your own liver from something like, for instance, like some deer or something out in the wild, or if you can get a hold of a grass-fed liver, you're going to be cheering because it'll be packed full of good nutrients.
Absolutely. So we're just going to finish up with some foods that you want to make sure you're getting into your diet and some foods to avoid. Mm-hmm. So I'll run through the foods to have, and then you can run through the foods to avoid.
Go for it. I'm just going to try plug this in, see if it helps.
Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that we're getting our non-starchy vegetables, like all our greens, broccoli, dark leafy greens, and capsicum as well. It's great. You want to make sure that you're getting fruit and vegetables that are high in vitamin C and E, tomatoes being one of those. You've also got your citrus fruits like lemons, oranges, and limes. High fiber foods, but less processed stuff. Whole grains, so we recommend naturally gluten-free whole grains like quinoa. And then you want to also make sure you're getting your antioxidants, so things like berries. Protein-rich foods like lean meats, fish, nuts, seeds, eggs, anything like that. And then you're also going to be able to use fish to get your omega-3s as well. So that's going to be your anti-inflammatory stuff. Fish like salmon, sardines, herring. Focusing on starches that have a lower GI. So often you hear people talk about having sweet potato instead of white potato. But if you do have white potato and you cool it before eating, that lowers the GI as well. And then I'm going to add on to that, we often talk about making sure that you dampen the sugar spike of the carbohydrates that you're eating by making sure you're having your protein and your fats with it. And then still choosing favourable options, but the potatoes are going to be still a favourable option if you're using your protein and your fats with that. Making sure you're drinking lots of water and substituting that for sweetened drinks, and then enjoying unsweetened, caffeine-free teas. That's going to be the way to go.
So, finishing up with foods to avoid. Certain foods are more likely to raise blood sugar, as we've talked about consistently. So, I guess we've talked a lot about some of these foods already throughout this talk, throughout this podcast. So, sweetened beverages, talking about things such as diet soft drinks as well as regular soft drinks, but even going down to things like your iced coffees, your iced teas, any juices, bits and pieces like that, so including fruit juices, sodas, and fountain drinks. I don't know what a fountain drink is. What's that? That's something from America for sure.
Yeah.
I think that's more so like when you go to the shops like a Hungry Jack's or a Macca's and they've got the automatic dispensers. Maybe that's what it's talking about. But reducing those sodas and stuff in general is going to help you out a lot. Even just reducing the amount of sugar you're having. If you, for instance, have coffee with sugar or tea with sugar, try reduce it. Try not to have it at all if possible. And then so the next thing is coming down to alcohol, particularly beer and grain based alcohols, especially in large quantities. So if you're someone who's drinking more than 6 beers a week, then I would say that's probably too much, and you need to probably look into reducing that. But when we look at that, it's also talking about your high sugar drinks. So if we're thinking about mix-in, so if you're having rum and coke on weekends, multiples of them, you're going to be having just too much sugar. Starchy veggies, like lots of them, talking about things like potatoes and yams. If you're living off of potato crisps and potato chips for dinner every night or lunch, then you're probably going to be doing too much. Even things like corn is going to be maybe too starchy, too high in starches. But realistically, I think if we're getting a good amount of these quality vegetables in with these starchy veggies, you're going to be better off for it. So you can have some sweet potato or some regular potato if you're getting other quality vegetables in as well. It's saying just don't make your main source of your diet coming from that. Processed snacks out of a box or foods that are in packets, so any sort of chips, biscuits, fruity bites, or what are those things, those the roll-ups, things like that. Like that's all just sugar-dense foods. Unfortunately, a lot of the packaged foods that we're getting for kids nowadays are just full of them. Sugary sweets, cupcakes, ice creams, chocolate bars, any of those sorts of baked goods are going to be packed full of sugars and not great. Even the paleo treats and sweets are not going to be that great or that favourable, especially if they're made on high amounts of like dates or bananas or anything like that. Or we're going to go too far the other way and go too high in fats, and then you won't be dropping weight. You're like, why am I not dropping weight? And it's because you've got way too much fat in your diet. Refined grains, such as white bread, rice, pasta, flour-based foods, which are lower in fiber and then whole grain versions. So realistically, trying to reduce these anyway would be really favorable. If you can get things like rice, like basmati rice, quinoa, buckwheat, any sort of gluten-free variation is typically going to be more favorable for you. Dairy from cows, especially milk, is going to be quite high. It's pretty much carbs and proteins and fats, but a high amount of carbs. So if you try and reduce this, it reduces a lot of inflammation by reducing milk. Fried foods, which we talked about a lot, even things right down to like, you think about your servo foods, Chico rolls, pies, not that they're necessarily fried, but even just reducing those is going to be really favorable. And then foods high in saturated fats, including chocolate, butter, salt pork. So that's once again probably more of an Americanized food. But I think as long as you're getting good quality fats in, so fats from avocado, fats from olive or coconut oils, or those products by themselves, olive or coconut, even fats from meats are not going to be bad as long as it's a good quality meat. Once again, going back to that quality. So team, that pretty much wraps us up. I'm starting to speed through because my phone is about to die and that's what's filming us. So I wanted to wrap that up. But Stacey, thanks for coming back on. It's been a lot of help and a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yell out if you guys have any questions, or if you want to add to the insulin sensitivity talk. You can find this on YouTube if you haven't already. If you want to go and see our little daughter, she's hanging out this whole episode. You may have heard her a few times. But that's about it from us from this week. So we'd love to hear from you guys. If you haven't already hit subscribe, make sure you do that. If you haven't already shared it with some friends, make sure you share this podcast around.
Thanks for tuning in. See you next.
Visit thechieflife.com for all of your nutrition coaching needs, your own personalized meal plan, as well as how you can get involved with one of our 7-pillar retreats.